Colonel Novus,
Present.
Page,
Here.
Valley,
Here.
Painter, here, Wolfensberger,
Here.
Cummings,
Here.
Brown.
Here.
I'm going to start out tonight and congratulate all of those that are newly elected. So congratulations on your election. So anyway, we'll have that moving forward and continue to get Jim up to speed on some things and be happy to help any of the other new trustees that, and I know Joe will be around and too, if there's any questions or anything, trying to get you guys up to speed too, so. So anyway, I'm gonna, hopefully we'll get through tonight. I told Terry, I'm like, I only have a few more meetings to try to beat her record, so. So, we don't have tons on our agenda tonight, so. And I don't see any public comment tonight, unless Jim or Andrea anything to say? All right, well, very good. Then we'll just move on through the agenda. We'll start out with our consent agenda. For items, minutes for the last board meeting on March 25th. Approval of the bills, treasurer's report, and investment recommendations. If there's any questions for Debbie or for Joe. If not, is there a motion?
I got one. Is he still not sending anything?
They are not sending nothing. I always send them an email, just like I do with all the other banks.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you. I just wondered that, so it was a blank and no header there. So,
Nothing.
Okay, and is there a motion to approve consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Page,
Yes.
Valley,
Yes.
Painter,
yes.
Wolfensberger,
Yes.
Cummings,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
First thing under new business is a first review. Joe handed out the budget. It's just the draft, so it's for us to review and look over. If I just sort of need to be passed by the 1st of May. Joe, do you have anything you want to add to that before we move to the next item?
No, just building on the point I've been making a few times here, that we've had quite a few projects that are stretching from one fiscal year to the next. That we continue to process through, and I'm hopeful that this fiscal year that you're looking at, we'll be able to pay off some of the, or get through some of these, projects we're currently in the middle of, so that next fiscal year might be a little bit more freed up. But if you would just take a look and let me know if you have any thoughts, suggestions. The final version will be at the next meeting for you.
Okay, so you want to wait till next meeting to discuss anything, or?
If you have questions or any suggestions.
I just flipped through here and I noticed it said publications and then one of them taught me is garbage disposal, $500. Is that enough to allow for that?
If you, and I can show you what we have done,
Okay.
but it's, I mean, I have to go back and look at my notes, but I put that in there because it's above what we have in study.
Is it
So
same with recycling electronics and all that?
that's a fee that we pay to,
Regional.
regional planning to participate, yeah.
Like, I think regional planning was the one who kind of organized it, but it's through one of those.
Yeah, well, that's just a cursory look there. I just thought I'd ask, we can talk about it.
In the past, the village did that 1 year and it was much more expensive.
Yeah, remember the one you
So-
tried to
That's
do
what was in my
ourselves?
mind, how much
It's
we
like over
paid.
$30,000.
Yeah, it was a chunk, and that's why, when I looked at it, kind of caught my eye. Okay,
And county has, or regional planning, whoever's doing it now has, they operate twice a year now. And the sign up for it's become much easier and everything too. So it's, it's still a good service for people in the community if they want to use it. The small fee that we pay is just, I think that's determined by per capita or something.
that's
Our
all.
people can still use it, so.
Susan Monty had an article in the paper about wanting to build a new facility that she shared, so.
Okay, any other questions in regards to this budget?
A quick question about the street repairs. You see that's got like 92,000, and I assume that that's like taken into account the, like, feature damages. I mean, I know they're gonna do out down by Evergreen, you know, and all that, but just with all those trucks going in and out, that's accounted for in here. Awesome.
It's more than what we budgeted last year by, we budgeted 90 last year, and we upped it a little bit this year, just to keep up, because everything's going up. The project that you're referring to is already, being paid for out of, MFT dollars, so.
So the second item on new business is consideration approval of the update to the code ordinances. This has been something that I had on my goals list for quite some time, even before becoming mayor. Thank you, Debbie. It's one thing, if you go through our codes, there's a lot of outdated information. Just years ago, I think when our codes were put in place, they were very specific on certain things. And slowly we got up to speed on some things, because I think a while back we made some changes in reference to our who we deposit or make our investments with, because it was pretty stringent at one time. So we opened that up a little bit, so it wasn't quite so very specific. But anyway, so throughout our codes, and this is only the first phase of it, because we have some more that need to be updated also. And Joe and I kind of went through some things that we knew that needed to be updated, and then Mark has gotten to go over those too and made them a little more generalized so that they're not so time stamped. That basically really not changing a whole lot other than taking out some of the old stuff that was no longer relevant in some of the codes. So that's what we're doing. It'll be a process. There'll be a couple of other ones later down the road, because we just kind of, it's a lot there, so we're taking a chunk at a time. So anyway, so that's what that's all about. I did catch one reference that I was hoping that we could still approve it, Mark, but I noticed there was another reference to the clerk that I think should be more general in regards to the towing. It was, let's see if I can find it real quick. It's under D, under towing in paragraph B. It says it shall be responsibility of the owner of the said vehicle to deliver a written notice to the village clerk. Do we want to make that the same as the others, just
Yeah,
reference
And
to
I'm
the
sorry.
village? Just remove clerk?
yeah, and you can vote on it that way tonight, and that'll be
Okay,
legal.
with that
Yeah,
amendment.
and
Okay.
then, Joe, is the term of art we're wanting to use village?
Yeah,
Or,
I think that's kind of look like
Okay.
what we use through the rest of the updates, so. Anyway, is there any?
we just put that in there, and make sure you're reading it.
Okay.
I have a question on page 24. It says dated this 8th day of November 2025. So it's supposed to be April, like above where it says Mike Center.
yeah, it should say April.
It should be April, I assume November 8th,
So,
2025.
well, the final version that's signed.
Oh,
signed,
yeah.
Will,
Yeah, I apologize for that, I don't have no idea how I got there.
Yeah, I don't want.
Again, you get the gold star award. Yeah. There may be another one, but I'm not gonna tell you either way, I'm just gonna see if you can find it.
No.
Yeah, that's pretty bad, so sorry about that.
Is there any other questions? And it'll probably be better as we do that, to do it in these small chunks too, because our ordinance book, like I said, is, I don't know, some of them, some of the dates and some of those ordinances of place go way back to like 2005 or something. I mean, they would.
96.
Yeah, so it's time for getting them updated.
Joe, what's the ordinance number for this? You're doing
I have to look at it.
it? Okay. You just tell them later.
So if there's no further questions on that, is there a motion? So moved.
I'll second.
Valley,
Yes.
Painter,
Yes.
Wolfersberger.
Yes.
Cummings,
Yes.
Rath,
Yes,
Page,
Yes.
motion passed 6-0.
The next item is old business. You guys at the last meeting discussed the fence variance, and you had requested to have the neighbors to send in their whether or not they approved or disapproved of the fence.
I'm making like.
I'll second.
Okay, Painter,
Yes.
Wolfersberger.
Yes.
Cummings,
Yes.
Rath,
yes,
Page,
Yes.
Valley,
Yes.
motion passed 6-0.
Village administrator, Joe, do you have any updates?
Yes, trustee Page, to your point on West Evergreen, just so everybody knows, that is slated to be fixed sometime in the fall, hopefully early fall. But as you know, it's not very good right now over there on West Evergreen, so the plan is that's gonna be triaged throughout the year to just get through, so we don't spend a bunch of money repairing it. Ultimately get tore up again because of
Right.
heavy trucks, but it's just gonna be something we just gotta grin and bear. Other than that, we just have our public hearing for the TIF district on April 15th. And then a follow-up meeting to that on April 29th. And that's all that I have.
Can you talk a little bit about how that public hearing is gonna, how that goes? Like the structure of it, I mean, I know there's probably a lot of people here and.
Well, and my take on it will be for you just to consider it just like a glorified or a exclusive public comment meeting, basically. And I don't know if Mark wants to add anything to that, but you just give people a chance to.
They talk and we don't have to say anything, right? We just take it all in.
That's true.
Yeah,
Well, we
I,
can say something.
yeah, my preference would be, especially if we're anticipating a large number of people here, whatever is. We'll have, once again, have the clock up on the thing, so they'll know, when their 5 minutes are up. And let each person go through what they have to say. I think it goes a little better, and I'm personally bad at it myself sometimes, because sometimes somebody said and I want to respond, and then I get. Sometimes I push my button and then I respond in a way I shouldn't, maybe, but anyway, I think it would be best if to get through it in the best fashion would be to give them the opportunity to say, to go through their public comment. You guys can take notes or whatever, if there's a question or something that, and then after the public comment's finished, then we'll give a chance if a trustee would like to make a response. I have a written thing. I was even gonna offer to the new mayor-elect if he had some kind of response in reference to maybe some of the things was said. Mark, do you have a
Do I have a
preference?
magic wand to make it all better for everybody? Of course I do.
I just want to go as smooth as possible.
We've got two meetings, one on the 15th and one on the 29th. Is it Nick is he gonna be at both those meetings?
I'm gonna
Yes.
ask.
He will be.
Okay.
All right. I have Tolono the night of the 15th. But if you end up wanting me, it's probably gonna be a light meeting, so I could approach the mayor by getting out of it. I would be available 29th. I don't know that you need me at all. It probably doesn't hurt if you think it's helpful, only because I've got the experience with the other communities in the county. And I represented a TIF developer a long time ago who tried to get something going in the village, and nothing's happened since because we didn't do a TIF back then. So those kinds of perspectives could be helpful. Or if you just need somebody to point to and say, it was all fine till Miller showed up at this fall, that's part of my job too. But point is, if that's helpful, you can tell me later and I can try to massage that. But the point of it is that it's the public's opportunity to tell you what's going on, and you just politely listen, and if you feel like you want to comment, you can, but you don't have to.
But I hope that some of them are gonna actually ask questions and not just stand up and voiced tons of opposition without actually asking questions about it.
Yeah.
I hope
And-
so.
and
If you're
that's-
watching.
That's
please
where
ask
I
questions.
think it would be
Please
helpful
ask
if we jot down those questions and then let them know that we will respond and answer those questions after, instead of breaking in each
Sure,
time, during the public comment, and then we'll make note of those questions, and then, one of us, or however we want to do it, if you have a good response for a particular question or whatever, I would like to give each trustee an opportunity to, respond to the various things that might be brought up, because unfortunately, I do think there's a lot of misinformation being thrown out there that, and it, TIF is somewhat complicated. It's, even for, it's taken us this long to get to this point, to understand it. And I know I've talked to a couple of people, and as I'm explaining some things to them, a light bulb goes off, and like, oh, I wish I had known that before. And it's like, well, yeah, it's hard to get all the information and to, have it all sink in and be able to know how it's gonna work. And the biggest thing that I think in this community, as we know, there's tons, as Mark said, of communities who've done tips for years. And the other taxing bodies, I don't see any of them collapsing and, schools falling apart and everything because they have a TIF district. And there's some communities that have more than one TIF district going on at a time. And so, I think the biggest thing that we're up against here is the very first one ever. And always when you're, the first time of doing anything, especially in a community like St. Joe or any community, the fear is bigger than the reality, and not knowing for sure how it all works and understanding it just creates more fear. So unfortunately, I don't know any better ways of trying to get the information out, because we've taken 2 years to meet with the other taxing bodies and different things. And most communities, my understanding, don't even do any of that. I mean, we've got some of these agreements set in place, working with some of the other taxing bodies, and most communities don't do that. And they'll go into their, do the formalities of setting up their TIF district, and go and notify the people they need to notify, put their, and they do it, and it's not a big deal. I mean, Mark, you've done these,
it is common for the other taxing bodies to be very suspicious about it. And it takes a lot of education for them to go through that process. The interesting statistic to understand, at least based on my experience with several communities, is when we go to do new TIF districts later, or we go to do extensions of old TIF districts that are about to die, we have zero problem and zero questions with those same bodies to get those going, because they've been through it, they see what it does, and they realize, but for having that, we wouldn't have all the money we have now. We need those taxing bodies. So, but it's upfront, it's a scary thing, and it just takes a lot of process. And all I can say is on both those meeting nights, I'd have Nick give a presentation that's going to be the same presentation for 2 nights, and it'll be the same thing you've heard 1,500 times before. But it does take that many times before people start to do the buy-in and kind of understand that it's gonna work. But our best salespeople are going to be the superintendents of TIF districts, or in TIF districts where we've had the TIF districts. And those are the best people to contact, because theoretically they're the ones that might have been deprived, and they're just the opposite. It's been a real boon for them. So, but conveying that to the public, it's difficult to do. And I was one of those people, by the way, when one of my villages first looked at doing this, I'm going, that's making something out of nothing, and it doesn't work that way. And it took a long time for me to process it, and I'm in business.
I wonder if like Land Deck has reached out to any of these surrounding superintendents would then do it too.
If we have questions for someone that speaks, if we save those for the end, will they have the opportunity to answer them? Or,
Even if someone in the public.
yeah, if in the public comment, we have a question to clarify something they're stating or. Like if we have a question for whoever's speaking,
Oh,
will they be able to respond?
to
if we
respond
ask the
back.
Question at the end?
That's not a problem, is that, Mark?
It's your meeting.
Okay.
All
So-
that matters is you let the public have its say.
Yeah,
And if you want to extend that conversation, which I think is a great idea.
Yeah.
Just do it.
I
Yeah.
just think we ought to just answer them as we go, and, because there's probably gonna be people with the same questions. So maybe if
Right.
you just answer it, it saves somebody else from standing up and asking the same question. And I feel like that ought to all rely on Nick, because I'm not gonna talk to anybody.
And it might make the meeting shorter instead of waiting
Yeah.
and going back.
And I mean, he's the expert, so I wouldn't be able to speak other than how I'm gonna vote, that. You know, other than that, that would be the only thing.
Nick did a very good job in the
Yeah.
committee. He went ahead and explained everything, questions that different people had. He'd be a good person, be very, he's well spoken, and I think he'll handle it just fine.
well, and maybe we do that is have Nick respond to some of those questions throughout the public comments, so maybe we can avoid. My biggest thing was I didn't want to get into a lot of back and forth engaging, especially if it's things that are being said that are ridiculous or something. And I know for myself personally, that's where I sometimes get a little frustrated and.
Do we have any protocol in place for if we have another incident like last time?
So they're not supposed to, the things in the public comments say that they are not supposed to speak inappropriately. It says a little bit more than that, and we just need to hold them to it. So I don't know how we're gonna do that. I don't know if you want someone else to do that, if,
Officer here, and if we have to escort somebody out, then we.
Yeah, and Rowdy's planning on being here, so that if we do have someone that steps over the line, then we'll just politely ask them to leave, and if they don't politely leave, then, you know, but yeah, I don't want anybody to get out of line, is the main thing. Hopefully nobody will, is always the hope, but, and maybe by just having Rowdy's, presence here, you know, it will make people behave themselves a little bit more.
If they listen to Nick's opening statement, he pretty well explains it in layman's terms, lays it out. And one of the things that he states is, first off, you're not losing anything. I mean, that's one of the main things that he brought up. He said there, you're not losing anything. You know, nothing's being taken away from you. And then he goes ahead and expands from there. Now, the question is whether the people will hear that portion, and they go ahead and interject their own sentiments. But I think it'll be fine with Nick. He handles it very well, from what I've seen. It's limited, but I think it'll be fine.
And it really shouldn't be controversial, but
Can I offer a suggestion to decide now that if Nick or any of you respond, is that gonna eat into their 3 minutes? Because I've seen that in public hearings. That I ask a question and you eat up my whole 3 minutes in your response, and no, I'm upset. So just deciding ahead of time how that's handled, is that a pause while you're talking,
yeah,
how you just be aware that may be a
yeah,
issue.
that's a good point, is that,
You just flat out ask them, we'll answer your questions at the end of your 5 minutes. If you're done talking now and it's only been 3 minutes, just to let them know, you have 2 minutes left. Do you have anything else that you want to, say before your time is up? And then we'll respond.
Yeah.
Instead of, I wouldn't mess around with stopping and starting
And I
the
think
clock.
that's-
I would
then you
just-
don't have, then there's no back and forth.
Right.
right? And hopefully too, if they're paying attention to, hopefully there won't be some redundancy and the same question being asked if once, hopefully. Hopefully it's all strictly informational type of stuff, and hopefully we keep everybody on task, so.
And maybe it's your call, but I mean, I would prefer if Mark would be here for that meeting, if it's possible, if he could be here, just because you do have the experience on the ground in these places, I mean, Nick is a consultant who, but you are like,
Yeah, he's perceived as a salesman selling his product
exactly,
and.
exactly. Rose,
I'm an
you
end
could speak
consumer.
to.
Yeah, I think that makes
See if
sense.
something where you're beret.
That would be.
No, I'll have a different color for each meeting, just in your honor.
Better be raspberry.
Okay, any other questions in regards to the TIP meetings? Mark, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
Mike?
No.
Public Works will have, is there anything that you know of Public Works needs to share or anything?
Don't have their report next.
I don't really have any updates. I'm still working with, the FFA at the high school and Cortiva, working on getting the flower stuff all figured out, so. Other than that, I don't really have anything in addition there. Nord, would you like to, kind of do a little shout out for your Easter egg thing out there so that, everybody's kind of aware of what's going on with that? I think some of you maybe seen the little Easter eggs out in front of different places, so.
There are 16 Easter eggs hidden out in St. Joseph. Some of them are inside businesses, some of them are outside. There are 2 in residential areas at home-based businesses. And what people have to do is take a photo of the egg and either send it to me on Facebook or the St. Joseph Chamber Facebook page. And then we're going to enter them to win one of 2 baskets that some area businesses have donated to. There's going to be some gift cards and some Easter candy and some other fun things. The feedback and the participation has been pretty good so far. It's just a fun and different way to tackle the egg hunt.
Thank you. I appreciate the chamber putting that together. I think those activities are always good for the communities. So, but other than that, trustees, do you have anything to add?
I was just gonna say, I think the bike rack looks nice downtown, the orange one, I assume you put that in.
Where's
Just down the road here, just past El Toro, at the end where the parking kind of starts.
Okay. The,
Look that up. Listen. Maybe then, I thought it looked good there. They did a good job.
Yeah, that's pretty fancy. We got more, we have to find a new place for it too, because the other corner probably gonna be a little too tight, it sounds like, by the winery. So we have 4 more.
yeah, 4 more.
They
Yeah,
just
so
didn't
we-
look like the normal generic silver ones. But
No, they're the same ones that
We,
they.
we wanted to tie them in with, when they were selected. That was, decided for back in 2019, basically, when it was really approved, and then you had COVID, and then, you know, but anyway, so yeah, we wanted to kind of tie in to kind of, so that when people do come in off the trail, it's recognizable that it's part of it being a trail town. So it's kind of, and I did just think of one other thing I wanted to mention, and I actually drove on it today too. Joe, I know, drove on it. You might want to check out, actually, it's kind of neat to see the progress, you know, the projects are so big with this sewer expansion and the stormwater and everything, and, you know, the curves have been tore up for a while now through the winter, and they actually have part of that semi open. Today, they were still working on it, doing some things, but I actually drove on a little piece of it there off of Water Street, coming around part of the curve, but you could kind of see it. It looks really nice. I mean, I know I kind of put it, Nora's getting ready to put out our spring newsletter, and that was, you know, one thing you know, especially if you live in the area where the construction is going on, it is no fun. I'm sure it's been miserable for some of those people, but you know, I appreciate their patience, and everybody I think has pretty much been very patient and understanding about it, but when it's done, it is gonna be so super nice. And it's been one of those areas of town that has been not done for a very, very long time. And so I think once it's done and some of that's moved out and, you know, moved on to the next section, I mean, people I think will really be impressed with it. So I know I was, because I was like, gosh, this is so nice. I mean, and I grew up here. It's a town, and those curves have always been that way forever, as far as I can remember. They just don't look the same. So anyway, so if you get a chance, take a little cruise over there. So, anyway, that's all I have. So if someone wants, I don't think I beat Terry's record, so.
No, I didn't tell you, but there's no way you're gonna be Terry Tucker.
I start asking about the bid meeting,
Yeah,
I'm
start
sure.
talking long. Not gonna happen.
So, hey, you guys only have another month of the. And then Jim can try and break the record. So, is there a motion? Second. Thank you.
I knew you were trying to break the record when I asked about the structure.